Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome. Welcome to Millennium News TV 24/7 Daily News Update. I am Todd David Goldfinger, and here's today's news. For more than a year, the Food and Drug Administration lacked a permanent head when the agency was central in the battle against COVID-19. Once President Joe Biden nominated Dr. Robert Califf to head the agency, it took the Senate 3 months to confirm him. The political battles over Califf's nomination highlight the difficulties that Biden faces in filling key positions throughout his administration. Vacancies in high-ranking positions across the executive branch could put a drag on Biden's ability to fight the pandemic, implement the $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure law, and boost the economy with inflation levels at a 40-year high. Without leadership and experts, we've seen departments increasingly stressed, said Maya McGuinness, president of the Bipartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. There's a struggle to get appropriations done. There is talk about defaulting on the debt ceiling, she said, adding that unfilled jobs affect the government's fiscal position and the president's overall agenda. Next in news, the new U.S. Census Bureau director said Monday that he is listening to the concerns of data users and policymakers, and the agency is making permanent community outreach efforts in an effort to restore any trust that was lost following attempts by the Trump administration to politicize the nation's 2020 headcount. Despite those attempts and obstacles created by the pandemic, the Census Bureau did its job, and the numbers used to determine political power and allocate federal funding are quality products, and they are fit for the purpose they were intended, Robert Santos said in an interview with the Associated Press. I have high confidence, and I've been incredibly pleased with the professionalism of the career staff at the Census Bureau, the job that they've done, and their dedication to the mission, the Constitution, and the rule of law, Santos said. They were doing their due diligence, and they made sure they did the job that needed to be done to get the 2020 census done, despite all the obstacles. The Trump administration unsuccessfully tried to add citizenship questions to the 2020 census form, which opponents feared may have suppressed participation from immigrants groups. The Trump administration also named an unusually high number of political appointees to the Bureau, and it tried to end the headcount early last October after its schedule had been adjusted for the pandemic in what opponents said was an effort to release the numbers used for divvying up congressional seats while President Trump was still in office. Next in news, Russian lawmakers on Tuesday authorized President Vladimir Putin to use military force outside the country, a move that could presage a broader attack on Ukraine after the U.S. said an invasion was already underway there. Several European leaders said Russian troops rolled into rebel-held areas in eastern Ukraine after Putin recognized their independence. But it was unclear how large the deployment was, and Ukraine and its Western allies have long said Russian troops were fighting in the region, allegations that Moscow always denied. Members of Russia's upper house, the Federation Council, voted unanimously to allow Putin to use military force outside of the country, effectively formalizing a Russian military deployment to the rebel regions, where an 8-year conflict has killed nearly 14,000 people. Shortly after, Putin laid out 3 conditions to end the crisis that has threatened to plunge Europe back into war, raising the specter of massive casualties, energy shortages across the continent, and economic chaos across the globe. Next in news. Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds will deliver the Republican response to President Joe Biden's State of the Union address on March 1st. GOP congressional leaders announced Tuesday. Reynolds was praised by Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell as fighting COVID without forgetting common sense by protecting Iowans' health and their rights at the same time. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy said, "Disastrous decision-making in Washington has been offset by real leadership in states across the country," and cited Iowa as an example. She handled COVID by choosing freedom over lockdowns and personal responsibility over mandates, leading to real economic recovery from the pandemic, McCarthy said. Reynolds is the 43rd governor of Iowa and has served since May of 2017. Stay with us. We're going to take a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News TV 24. Stay with us.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Daily Local News Update. Next news, the Supreme Court has agreed to hear a new clash involving religion and the rights of LGBTQ people. In the case of a Colorado web designer who says her religious beliefs prevent her from offering wedding website designs to gay couples. The High Court said Tuesday it would hear the case of Lori Smith. The Denver area designer offers graphic and website design services and wants to expand to wedding website services. But she says her Christian beliefs would lead her to decline any request from a same-sex couple to design a wedding website. She also wants to post a statement about her beliefs. Doing those things, however, would run afoul of a Colorado anti-discrimination law. Anti-discrimination. Smith had argued the law violates her free speech and religious rights. The Supreme Court said in taking the case that it would look only at the free speech issue. It said it would decide whether a law that requires an artist to speak or stay silent violates the free speech clause of the First Amendment. The case is expected to be argued in the fall. Next in news, the three white men convicted of murder in Ahmaud Arbery's fatal shooting were found guilty of federal hate crimes Tuesday, violating Arbery's civil rights and targeting him because he was black. The jury also found father and son Greg and Travis McMichael and neighbor William Roddy Bryan guilty of attempted kidnapping, and the McMichaels guilty of the use of a firearm in the commission of a violent crime. The verdict, handed down one day before the second anniversary of Arbery's death on February 23, 2020, was a symbolic one, coming just months after all three defendants were convicted of murder in a Georgia state court and sentenced to life in prison. But family and community members view the hate crimes trial as an important statement that racism motivated the killing. The case also became part of a larger national reckoning on social injustice after graphic video of Arbery's killing leaked online. Arbery's father, Marcus Arbery Sr., bowed his head and shook his fists in quiet celebration as the guilty verdicts were read in the courtroom. He then pressed his hands together in front of his face as if saying a silent prayer. In other news, lawyers in the trial of a former Kentucky police officer involved in the deadly narcotics raid that left Breonna Taylor dead will return to court Tuesday to finish an extended jury selection process. The attorneys will attempt to winnow down a pool of 48 people to 12 jurors and 3 alternates for the trial of former officer Brett Hankison, who is charged with wanton endangerment for shooting into the apartment of one of Taylor's neighbors on the night of March 2020 raid. The 2020 raid. He was fired a few months later. Hankinson, whose shots did not hit Taylor, is the only officer charged in the case. None have been charged in connection to Taylor's death. Court officials initially gathered an expanded pool of 250 potential jurors to account for the widespread publicity in Taylor's death, which sparked months of marches and protests in downtown Louisville in the summer of 2020. After 4 days of questioning potential jurors on their knowledge and beliefs about Hankison's case, prosecutors and defense attorneys agreed on a pool of 48 to choose the final jury from. In other news, the Supreme Court is leaving in a place of decision, throwing out a lawsuit filed by a woman who accused billionaire financier Jerry Epstein of sexually abusing her when she was a child. Courtney Wild's lawsuit claimed Florida federal prosecutors failed to consult victims more than a decade ago when reaching a secret plea deal with Epstein, who died in jail in New York in 2019. The High Court said Tuesday it would not consider the case. As is typical, the court did not comment in turning away the case, which was included on a list of cases the court said it would not take. The Biden administration had urged the justices not to hear the case. A 3-judge panel of the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled 2-1 against Wild in April 2020, saying the lower court had correctly thrown out her lawsuit. Wild's lawsuit revolved around a secret plea negotiation with Epstein that spared him serious federal charges and permitted him to plead guilty to lesser state prostitution-related charges in Palm Beach County, Florida. Epstein spent 13 months in jail while being allowed to go to his office almost daily, paid financial settlements to victims, and was registered as a sex offender. The lawsuit claimed the deal was never discussed with any of his victims in violation of the Crime Victims' Rights Act. We're going to take a short break from the daily English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Daily Local News Update. In other news, Russian President Vladimir Putin laid out his version of Ukraine's history, saying essentially that Ukraine was always a part of Russia. While that serves his purpose, it is also a fiction. Ukraine has its own thousand-year history. What is now Ukraine was a contested region of shifting borders for centuries that did not come completely under Moscow's rule until late in the 18th century during the reign of Catherine the Great. And even then, the Russian Empire was never able to swallow it easily or completely. In his present-day effort to bring an independent, Western-looking Ukraine back into Russia's orbit, Putin is following a well-trod path of many of Russia's rulers before him, from Peter the Great to Joseph Stalin. The question is whether it can limit Putin's revanchist ambitions through diplomacy, sanctions, and Ukrainian military resistance. The recognition of the two breakaway regions by Putin and the sending in of Russian troops already threatening the country could easily be the trigger for a wider war for all of Ukraine. I consider it necessary to take a long overdue decision to immediately recognize the independence and sovereignty of Donetsk People's Republic and Luhansk People's Republic, Putin said, referring to two pro-Russian parts of Ukraine in the Donbas region that since 2014 have been engaged in a war with the Kiev government and has claimed an estimated 14,000 lives already. In other news, the 27 European Union nations have unanimously agreed on an initial set of sanctions targeting Russian officials over the actions in Ukraine. French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian's foreign minister said EU Foreign Affairs Chief Josep Borrell said the package approved Tuesday will hurt Russia and it will hurt a lot. Borrell said that the sanctions would affect members of Russia's lower house of parliament and other individuals involved in approving the deployment of Russian troops to separatist-held regions of eastern Ukraine. He says the package will also affect Russia's financing of policies linked to Ukraine by limiting access to EU financial markets. The story is not finished, said Borrell of Russian actions in Ukraine. Shocked by Russian President Vladimir Putin's order to deploy troops to separatist regions of eastern Ukraine, world leaders moved quickly Tuesday to impose as forceful a forceful response as possible in hopes of averting a full-blown war in Europe. Germany made the first big move, taking steps to halt the process of certifying the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline from Russia, a lucrative deal long sought by Moscow, but criticized by the US for increasing Europe's reliance on Russian energy supplies. In other news, surging energy prices and the Russia-Ukraine conflict are making European leaders think hard about energy security, particularly their decades-old reliance on Moscow for natural gas. The crisis shows Europe's vulnerability after years of limited progress in completing an energy union. A 2015 vision to allow affordable gas and electricity to flow across borders while diversifying suppliers and reaching climate goals. As renewables like solar and wind are slowly built up, and coal and other fossil fuels are phased out, Europe still needs natural gas, and it's dependent on Russia to get it. That came into sharp relief as Europe's gas supply dropped and prices soared, partly because Russia sold less gas than normal, squeezing households and businesses and rising costs. With gas reserves low and concerns that a full-blown war could interrupt pipeline flows from Russia, the EU is focused on getting liquefied natural gas, or LNG, by ship from the United States, Qatar, Algeria, and elsewhere, until renewables catch up. Environmentalists fear making even a short-term priority could set back Europe's goals to move away from fossil fuels. Doubling down on renewables would help reduce the dependency on Russian gas. EU Energy Commissioner Kadri Simpson said Monday, but reiterated that energy security was critical. An advisory group to coordinate the EU's gas supply security was meeting Tuesday because it's important that contingency plans are ready for the worst-case scenario, he said. Another news. Germany has taken steps to halt the process of certifying the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline from Russia. Chancellor Olaf Scholz said Tuesday, as the West started taking punitive measures against Moscow over the Ukraine crisis, the decision, which was criticized by Moscow, is a significant move for the German government. Scholz said his government made the decision in response to Russian President Vladimir Putin's recognition of the independence of two breakaway regions in eastern Ukraine that he said marked a serious break of international law. Now, it's up to the international community to react to this one-sided, incomprehensible, and unjustified action by the Russian president. He told reporters in Berlin, adding that it was necessary to send a clear message to Moscow that such actions won't remain without consequences. End quote. Up to now, Berlin had been resisted pulling the plug on the project, despite strong pressure from the United States and some European countries to do so. Washington has for years also argued that building another pipeline bringing natural gas from Russia to Germany, especially one that bypasses Ukraine, increases Europe's reliance on Russian energy supplies. We're going to take a short break from the daily news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Hello and welcome back. Welcome to Millennium News TV 24/7 daily local news update. In other news, Madrid-based law firm will conduct a year-long inquiry into past and present sexual abuse committed by Spain's Roman Catholic clergy. Members of religious orders, teachers, and others associated with the church, the law firm, and the head of the country's bishops' conference said Tuesday. The public announcement marked a departure from the previous position of the Spanish Episcopal Conference, which for years rejected the idea of taking a comprehensive approach to investigating sexual abuse. Some abuse survivors met the news with skepticism. Cardinal Juan Jose Omella, the conference's president, said the goal of the inquiry by law firm Cremades and Calvo Sotelo is, quotes, help in reparation of the victims, establishing new and additional channels to collaborate and denounce in addition to those existing in over 40 offices established by the church. End quote. The inquiry is intended to cover all abuse and is not limited to investigating only cases in a certain time period, according to Javier Cremades, the law firm's founder. Cremades said, as a faithful Catholic himself, he was both overwhelmed by the task and convinced that the church must go to the end, get to the bottom, investigate, beg for pardon if it's needed, and rectify everything that is necessary, he said. He said his firm would act pro bono and only seek for the Episcopal Conference to pay logistical costs or the fees of external advisors. In other news, the judge has denied bail to one of the leading organizers behind protests against COVID-19 restrictions and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Ontario Court Justice Julie Bourgeois said Tuesday she believed that there was a substantial likelihood Tamara Lich would reoffend if released. Lich has been a key organizer of the protests that paralyzed the streets around Parliament Hill for more than 3 weeks. The trucker protest also grew until it closed a handful of U.S.-Canada borders. They had since ended. Lich was arrested last Thursday and charged with committing mischief and promised during a bail hearing on Saturday to give up her advocacy of the protest and return to Alberta. Ottawa protesters who vowed never to give up are largely gone, chased away by police in riot gear, in what was the biggest police operation in the nation's history. The self-styled Freedom Convoy shook Canada's reputation for civility, inspired by convoys in France, New Zealand, and the Netherlands, and interrupted trade, causing economic damage on both sides of the border. Hundreds of trucks eventually occupied the streets around Parliament, a display that was part protest and part carnival. In other news, Russian President Vladimir Putin has called for international recognition of Crimea as part of Russia, as an end to Ukraine's NATO membership bid and a halt to weapons shipments there. Putin claimed Tuesday that Russia's 2014 annexation of Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula should be internationally recognized as a legitimate reflection of the local population's choice, likening it to a vote for Kosovo independence. The annexation has widely condemned by Western powers as a breach of international law. To end the current crisis, he also called for a renunciation of Ukraine's NATO bid, saying it should assume a neutral status, and said that the West should stop sending weapons there. Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said Russia is taking military action against Ukraine and has condemned Moscow's decision to recognize separatist areas of southeast Ukraine as an independent. Stoltenberg called the move Tuesday as, in quotes, a serious escalation by Russia and a flagrant violation of international law, end quote. The NATO chief called the military action a further invasion of Ukraine by Russia, which had already invaded its neighbor in 2014. In other news, French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian said the European Union's 27 members unanimously agree on an initial set of sanctions targeting Russian officials involved in Ukraine. EU Foreign Affairs Chief Josep Borrell said Tuesday, this first package of sanctions will hurt Russia, in quotes, and it will hurt a lot, end quote. He said the package would affect members of Russia's Duma, who voted against the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine, as well as another 27 people and entities, which are often companies, banks, or agencies. Borrell added that the package will also affect financing policies linked to Ukraine by limiting access to EU financial markets. Referring to Russian actions in Ukraine, Borrell said in quotes, "This story is not finished," end quote. The Baltic countries' position on NATO eastern flank was at the forefront of discussions Tuesday as defense ministers from the Joint Expeditionary Force met in central England. The UK-led force is a group of 10 nations designed to react more quickly in the event of threats like those now posed by Russia. Latvian Defense Minister Artis Papriks said in an interview with the Associated Press that world leaders must act swiftly to impose punishing sanctions, or it will be too late to stand up for freedom and democracy. Thank you. This was the daily local news update of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please log in to get the latest news on all our social networking sites: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. On TikTok, it's Millennium News 24. Also, our YouTube channel is News Channel M24. Viewers now both on network broadcasting Android and iOS devices, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV. Also, all smart TV platforms. Please enjoy our entertainment and latest news and views. Our Millennium TV apps, Millennium TV USA Android, great app. Millennium News Google, www.millenniumnews24.com. Stay with Millennium News 24. Thank you. My name is Todd David Goldfinger. Thank you so much for being with us. Stay safe and be well. Peace.